So now at this point, we're going to have the open mic. And how this goes is, as a lot of you know, I'm sure, is to volunteer. You can volunteer in the chat or use your raise hand function. I will call on people. I'll let you know who's reading next. The rules are pretty simple. 1 poem per customer. Family friendly because there are kids watching, participating, and possibly watching this on YouTube in the future. Hi, kids. And the poem can be yours or someone else's. So I'm going to turn to the chat and okay. So let's have Stuart Hadley up first, followed by Anne McWhite, and then Brian Beard. Stuart and Brian, let's go with Stuart first.
Great, thank you. There were a couple of people that volunteered in front of me, I think, but I will go ahead. Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody, good to be here. And great reading so far, I appreciate it. I have not read anything of mine in public in a long time, and so I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna read one poem, but this is probably my favorite sonnet that I've written. It was published in Glass Mountain in 2011. She darted down to lift me up. She darted down to lift me up, the babe who'd fallen from the nest onto the earth and couldn't rise alone. I felt she'd saved me under wing, a fantasy rebirth. Her sudden touch and feathers' softness warmed my frame. Our rapid flight was underway, and touching down in others' nests, we swarmed around the sugar water tap to play. But through our frolics near and far, between our neighbor flocks, and as in baths, we'd fight and splash and sing, this nestling missed a thing. Our trip was ever one of backward flight. Among a brood and young and humming free, we hovered long in fleeting jubilee. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's have Anne next, followed by Brian, and then Jane.
Okay, I really enjoy humor, so this is just a short humorous poem called Billy Goat Women. Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, you have an allotted amount, male or female. That is when you're young, when fertility and manhood cooperate and coordinate with the laws of attraction. Deep in voices, physical strength, facial hair attracts the attention of softer tones, Venus-like forms, hairless complexions. Nature got it just right, but age mixes it all up. The ladies begin to grow beards and mustaches, anxiously peering into mirrors, tweezers in hand, plucking out unwanted advances of unruly hairs, unsightly blights, fully exposed, doing battle as hormones digress from their intended use. The feminine side under attack. That pesky testosterone makes a show of force. Now we, like our male brethren, are tasked with the daily ritual, vigilant maintenance, or succumb to the fate of the Billy Goat Women.
Thank you. So next up, let's have Brian, then Jane, and Kendra.
Thanks, Lila. Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. This is called It's True About John. Written at a rest stop on the way back from Thanksgiving in the year of the plague. I was born a series of ones and zeros at Texas Children's Hospital. Before that, I was fine. I had no desire to be born. If I had known they were going to cut me out anyway, I would have done so on my own. Sorry, Mom. Through the tic-tac-toe game of the window pane, upon which X had won endlessly and O had never played, sunlight, trademark, gleamed on the cars below, a holy word I tried to say but could only scream. I reckon those cars are all junkyarded now, metal bones broken apart, flattened, sold for scrap. I'm still here though, 43 and counting. How are you? Fine, thanks. Life, a series of codes. Thou shalt sneeze into a Kleenex, a corporate word that sounds like clean axe, but isn't. There is one body, but many parts. In the absence of Kleenex, use your elbow. Where are you going to spend eternity? Do you believe in X or not? X, per Anselm of Canterbury, and every megachurch that ever made budget, standing for God as man sacrificed on cross for sins of world. Thou art Texan and a man-child, therefore thou shalt wage war, or if thou wilt not, thou shalt gird thyself in a bibber and spats, coat and a flat-top shako, march and toot, go team, lay them to waste. When a warrior goes down, you go down too on one knee. Tremble because you heard the hit. Bow your head and thank the warrior for being willing to pay the ultimate price for you, that you may enjoy the blessings which God has bestowed upon you. Don't stand until he is pulled back up to life. Clap, clap. Thank you for your sacrifice. Commence again to slaughter. Do you smell alcohol? Drink. Drink, or how will you put braces on the table? Drink, or how will you put beans on your children's teeth? Consider Jesus, the world's first capitalist. Consider the football coach stalking the sidelines like a founding father, putting his slaves into formation. E pluribus unum, Latin for winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Oh, one, oh, one, one, oh, one. Oh, one master coder, take my faulty code. Delete and resequence or I shall perish. Is it true about John that before the wilderness, before the camel hair shirt, the locusts and honey, the yoga and transcendental meditation, the anti-empire visions, the hysterical kingdom of God talk veering to the logorrheic and obsession, all that mix of grandiosity and self-abnegation, those killjoy harangues that made the mother of a pretty girl the king had the hots for, ask for, and get. Can you believe it? His head upon a platter. Is it true he worked in finance? Had smooth hands and an iPhone, that he used to take women to that restaurant that juts over the Hudson River and ply them with Chardonnay and BS them about how in his glory days he quarterbacked the Bethlehem Bulldogs and took them to state? I know it's true. I saw him there as he sat across the table from my sister. His back to the ocean, her face to the sunset and the waves, the party lights strewn around the rafters and pylons with the dainty nonchalance with which the captor strews chains around the captives, the same kind of nonchalance that leads people to believe that political solutions can solve spiritual problems. Google it if you don't believe me, I heard him say, but she had no need. My sister has always been too bright to base life decisions on research. Forgive me, God. I am a doubting Thomas, banging on a steering wheel, paralleling the trail of tears in reverse, keeping the windows closed to shut out the stench of Monsanto and styrofoam and particle board and hormone-laden belches of genetically modified livestock. Somewhere around here, the highway curves to avoid a slave cemetery. Somewhere around here, 41 men were hung for refusing to fight for the Confederacy. Somewhere around here, there's a Buc-ee's. No, I have not seen Dallas from a DC-9 at night. I can hold it. Thanksgiving was just as you would imagine it. We gorged ourselves on one of the turkeys the president did not pardon and crashed on the couch, falling into collective comatose around the halftime show. I awoke with inches to goal and was about to wake everyone else up when I realized that it was a blowout anyway. It didn't matter. The QB had just gotten sacked when the broadcast was interrupted by an ad for I don't know what, featuring an old man in a suit on his knees, his plump cheeks red and glistening as he devotedly kissed the foot of a one-legged supermodel lying upon a chaise lounge. Coming up for air, he promised her, if the subtitles are to be believed, seagull eggs and rice cakes. Returning to her foot, he missed what the camera did not, her faithless nod. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got a lot of good open mic readers today. This is excellent. Appreciate you all showing up, and we will get to absolutely everybody. Next up, let's have Jane Lewis, followed by Kendra and Maria.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. My poem is about a school shooting that happened in Colorado and my thoughts about it. It's called The Stem. Settled in with a cup of steaming hot green tea, morning ritual in motion, news flash of another shooting that happened the day before. Fingertips that were posed and ready to type, now motionless and hovering in midair over my computer, as details spilled out of the newscaster's mouth, escaped through the TV screen, and landed with a plop in my living room. They pulled on the floor in a glutinous mass, then rose up like a demon materializing before my eyes, leaving a bloody question mark afloat in the air. disbelief, helplessness, anger, rage, sorrow, for the students drafted into a war they didn't want to fight. Hand-to-hand combat with guns thrown in for good measure by the enemy. Dark, troubled souls, their minds filled with unrelenting anguish, leaving 3 heroes in the wake of the sneak attack, 1 a casualty. Soldiers who took cover under desks and retreated to safety bear unforeseen battle scars, PTSD and survivor's guilt, possible lifelong friends. Hearts cry out for answers. TED Talk by Dylan Klebold's mom, an honest exploration of the Columbine murders and suicide of her son. Mental illness, always at the root of the stem. Tomorrow, I'll pay a simple act of respect to Kendrick as his family, joining in a celebration of the life of a teenage fallen soldier, immortalized forever as a man in his heroism, bearing witness to his sacrifice and those of others who've lost their lives around the country in school shootings. They should never have been drafted in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kendra, if you're ready, we'll go for you.
Thank
And
you,
then,
everybody.
great.
The poem I'm reading today is one that I've written called Revolution Sounds. How can people celebrate with something that sounds like gunshots? My friend, UASF, retired, who saves and scrimps every year to go somewhere without the sounds of gunshots on the 4th at New Year's, says, the people who shoot them off, waking the babies, scaring the dogs, never met a vet with PTSD, don't believe in the panic in your ears and your hands, your feet that those sounds cause. Maybe all the vets they know brag about kills, talking in jargon to show how real they are, exchanging a few letters to move from socio to psychopath. The sound of violence is not a sound of freedom. Give me a revolution of other sounds, voices in song or chant, a pen on paper, signing more just laws, the collapse of Stone Mountain, the fall of its brother Rushmore, the footfall of young Black men coming home safely at night. Sounds I can celebrate. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Next up, we'll have Maria, followed by Laura, then Pravadri. Maria? Can't hear you yet.
Okay, I had to unmute me, sorry. Hi, everybody, my name is Maria. My poem is God's Gifts. I wrote this poem when we were going through a very serious storm, and I spoke to the Lord and he answered me. So, like I said, the title of it is God's Gifts. I was down and out, nowhere to turn. There was so much doubt. God's peace I did yearn. It felt like my world was coming down on me. And it felt like happiness was never meant to be. So I called God with my heart in my hand, certain that he would undoubtedly understand. And this is what he said. I gave you eyes that you might see the beautiful things created by me. I gave you ears that you might hear words of encouragement and not of fear. I gave you a mouth which to speak to the lost, the lonely, the broken, and the weak. I gave you a heart with which to love, and it should start with God above. I gave you hands so you could reach out and help those confused and in doubt. I gave you gifts for you to use, to share with others and not abuse. My child, don't worry so. Just hold on to my hand and don't let go. And that is my point.
Nicely done. Thank you. All right. Next up, we'll have Pravadri, followed by one or both Rileys, James and Marta, then Tamara, and a few more people. Pravadri. Can't hear you yet.
Now am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so a very happy new year to everybody. And I've actually written a poem on New Year, so I want to tell it today. I'm going to read out. As the world celebrates with crackers and cakes, and the city gets flooded with lights, we all hope for a new year filled with delight. The year which brought tears to many eyes, stopped people from meeting, has to say its last goodbye and watch us celebrating. This year indeed was very difficult from any other. People locked in their homes, prohibited to hug or meet even his own brother. However, 2020, we must thank you, for we got endless time to learn up things new. We got time to wonder and wait and discover talents within us which we overlooked or never pondered. So let's walk right now into the light, holding our hands really tight, removing all glooms shining very bright, and say together, come what may, we were, are, and will remain always ready to fight. Thank you.
Thank you. So much talent at a young age. It's good to see. All right. Next up, let's hear from James and/or Marta Riley. You're still muted.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
Okay, it's Marte, actually. We share the account, so his name popped up. I'm going to read a poem about a visit that I made to the Standing Rock Reservation during the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. It's called Milk of Magnesia. Milk of magnesia flows freely in the land where buffalo herds still raise up prairie dust when their hooves thunder like Lakota Sioux drummers. It's not the buffaloes or the Sioux who are irregular. They eat plenty of fiber. Buffaloes have their grass, and so do the water protectors when state troopers fling them face down to the ground and zip tie their hands in a grotesque rodeo of arrests. I never met my Cherokee grandfather, but the bouquets of tribal flags aloft in the camp make me wonder if I can hear his voice in the staccato duet that they sing with the wind. The peace that I feel among the teepees and tents seems to dissolve the space-time continuum between my grandfather and me. On the shore of the Missouri River, my husband and I pray to our Standing Rock to help the Lakota people prevail over the black snake of oil profits, even as it burrows defiantly through native sacred land. It hastens to take a permanent swim beneath their only fresh water. Miniwachoni, water is life, shouts the banner at the pipeline desecration site. Spacemen in matching riot gear arrive from the planet control and randomly douse the faces of peaceful activists with liquid fire. Native medics rush in to pour the healing balm for mace in the face, giving temporary relief from the agony of greed. Thank you.
Thank you, Marte. So next up, we'll have Tamara, followed by John Gorman. And if no one else is left, I'll finish it off. So, oh, and let me know, is it Tamara or Tamara?
It's Tamara, but Tamara's fine.
Wait, did we lose her?
Sounds like she cut out.
Oh, okay. Well, I think John Gorman's always fantastic. Let's have him read next, and we'll get back to her when she's back on.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi is a bit in and out.
I can't tell who that is. Tamara, is that you? Okay. Why don't we let John Gorman read, and then
Hello.
Tamara, when you're maybe a little more stably on here, you'll go after John Gorman.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Dr. Gorman, I think you're muted.
What about now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, yesterday I had my first Pfizer COVID vaccine injection, owing to my great antiquity and to a connection to UTMB. So I thought I'd read my COVID poem. It's called COVID, Galveston, Texas. Another day of survival under the palms, foreshortened horizons, not nature's horizons. Nature's doing fine under the cleaner air. It's the psychic stuff, the tedium, the time compressions. Didn't I just take my magnesium, my blood pressure? Fauci, Lemon, Cuomo, Anderson, Cooper. In the towns around Chernobyl, they put murals of birch forests in the school hallways so kids would think they know what a walk in the woods is. Saharan dust blows over coastal Texas, or invisible virus volleyballs. Either way, you get a raspy throat, supersized helpings of panicky despair. We're Camus, Oran, we're Melbourne and on the beach. We've got an amusement pier here, a Ferris wheel by the sea, just like the Dunkirk staging ground in Atonement. In a way, it's a good thing I'm so old. At least my youth hasn't been stolen from me by spiky things that look like weaponized handballs. I look at new parents, pregnant women, and think, oh, holy shit. The night-eyed online graduates. Oh, holy shit. My eager pubescent young and the eager pubescent young, excuse a lapse of manners here, but oh, holy shit, a versatile phrase. Trump and the Trump enthused are like, say the stupidest things. What? Survival, some goal. Video church, telemedicine, Zoom family reunions, foreshortenings, like that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Tamara, how's your connection? You ready?
My connection's good. I just have to keep my camera off, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Okay. I write a lot of history poems, so it'll take too long to explain what Port Royal is, but I would highly suggest that you look it up. This poem's called Port Royal. There's talk of the sailor's devil and how he haunted that wicked city. Black ships submerged in water circling coral reefs where the buccaneers once lived. The Taino girl hid between carts as she watched the black figure shift her adopted home. Her Amerindian ancestors give visions of their quests between islands, send warnings of Zemi who enact their revenge on fair-skinned pirates. She saw the ship of the never-crowned king dock, wondered of her father she once knew, now planting sugar on the pirate king's plantation. Here marauders drown images of Scylla and Charybdis in tankards full of rum. Duppies reduced to powder, now loaded into Westerner guns. In this tavern, she watched the black shadow latch to their false ruler. How it whispered nightmares masked in dreams until the waves pushed higher than the buildings and the ground shook. Her mother spoke of their escape to Cuba when the tides rose and the screams of filles de joie shattered windows. With her last breath, she could hear the shadows' laughter as their home submerged with the rest of the port, mouth pressed against the roof, gasping for the little air left. Davy Jones claimed enough souls for rebirth, this port now a barrier reef. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more, Laura Lilia, and then I'll go.
Thank you. This has been very very inspiring to start the year here. My poem is called Intemporary Madness. It's to see right there underneath that chair. You'll soon get to see the ones that laugh at the dead, leaving others on red. With a core too iced from within, it can never bleed out, even if it's a shootout. To the other ones running rating races, holding their breaths, forgetting the pace and outrunning the wit, for they don't seem fit. Yet please don't forget the sick, for they always feel as they are always to be left to get the short end of the stick, and never enough to even have a pop-up shop while all cracks are to pop. To notice how you are to hyperventilate about the future while your toes are left frozen in the past. No, these days, they are not meant to be lived hidden away. No notification is meant to be left unread, because the thing about hiding from the world is that you start hiding from yourself, unable to lose up the grip between morals, saying to yourself that not relying on others is the way to be. Isolated, we are all in a split, seen as fit, and to grow of cynicality painted amongst your walls with no acceptance of it all. No, these days are some strange ones, but time reminds us nothing is to remain the same, as the only thing perpetual is change. So I say to thy human that while in temporary madness all will sound distorted, so might as well go outside and listen to some wind chimes in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think I will wrap this up. As I mentioned earlier, you can read a poem of yours or one by somebody else. And because I do some work for public poetry, I would just not feel right using this to read one of my own. But I am always reading and very happy to share things I love. So here is a nice book. One of the last public events I went to in person before, everything changed in March was a reading by the poet Carl Phillips over at the Manil. And this book literally didn't make it there because I left it at home and I couldn't find it. Oh, and life was busy back when I drove and did things. But I loved the reading, and there was this wonderful program, a physical paper program full of all kinds of events. So I marked it up, and these were some of my plans for 2020. And well, you know what happens to plans. But anyway, the book resurfaced in all my various tidyings up this past year. And I love this little poem. It's a pretty short poem. So I thought I'd share this with you all today. It's called Gold Leaf by Carl Phillips. To lift without ever asking what animal exactly it once belonged to, the socketed helmet that what's left of the skull equals, up to your face, to hold it there, mask-like, to look through it until looking through means looking back through the skull into the self that is partly the animal you always wanted to be, that, depending, fear has prevented or rescued you from becoming, to know utterly what you'll never be, to understand in doing so what you are, and say no to it, not to who you are, to say no to despair.